All right, everybody. Welcome to Irish Breakdown. It is another edition of Irish Breakdown, and it's
We
sorry,
hope y'all don't get sick
I,
of us
I didn't mean
because
to make that sound like it was a negative thing.
no,
but,
it's been a lot this week. It's been a lot. So I
but
feel
it's
like
Sunday.
we've all
Yeah.
kind of been in this. We've all needed this therapy session this week, and so we've spent a lot of time together working through some feelings together. And
I know, right?
now it's time to start talking a little bit about some football. But
Yeah,
but Vince,
absolutely.
so obviously we're going to talk about Notre Dame and Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl, right?
Yes.
But
Yep.
Vince, first and foremost, I want to tell people. So I said, hey, we're going to start at 3:00. And Vince was like, yeah, can we wait until after Marcus Freeman is done talking on ESPN?
I wanted to
I was
hear
like,
it, man.
you read my mind. So we're going to talk about that as well. But, Vince, I'm glad at least this is all behind us. No more playoff talk. No more
Sure.
who are they going to play. It's now time to start locking in. I feel like that was the one holdup, right, with the Marcus Freeman. It was like, okay, where's it going to begin? When's it going to begin? Now we know Notre Dame gets to play Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl. So
and look, it's a good landing spot for Notre Dame. We knew as soon as obviously Michigan took care of their business, and when Alabama did what they did to Georgia, we knew it was going to be a New Year's Six. And we knew it was either going to be the Peach Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl. And, it's nice to have that set in stone, obviously, because now we can start looking at matchups and we can actually break this thing down and do what we do, right? I mean, that's what we do, and we haven't been able to do that for a couple of weeks, it feels like. So,
and this is the matchup I wanted, meaning the Fiesta Bowl. I did not want to see Pitt in the Peach Bowl. As much as I would have much rather made the shorter trip to Atlanta than Phoenix.
Yeah.
There just was nothing enticing to me about playing Pitt. It's a team Notre Dame has played fifth most in all time. I mean, they just played each other last year. They played each other a lot. They're on the schedule again in 2 years. They've never played Oklahoma State ever in football. So it's going to be exciting. But I want to begin with Coach Freeman's comments on ESPN, Vince. I'll tell you the first thing that stood out to me, and I want to get your reaction too. There were twice in there my big complaint about Brian Kelly. One of my many complaints about Brian Kelly was his unwillingness to verbalize what everybody knew. And Marcus Freeman's first comment was embracing the history that he's trying to overcome. I wrote an article today at Irish Breakdown called basically saying Marcus Freeman era is going to begin with a chance to slay a dragon. Yeah. The point being, Notre Dame has not won a New Year's Six major bowl game since January 1st, 1994. So when this game takes off, it'll be 27 years since Notre Dame won a major bowl game. That was the Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M after the 93 season. They're 0-8, and that doesn't include the BCS championship game in 2000 after the 2012 season. And most of the games have not been competitive. They lost 4 straight Fiesta Bowls since they won the championship in 1988, or technically January 1st, 1989. His thing says, he basically said, this is something we have failed at, basically. And we've got to change that. Like, showing an awareness of Notre Dame's history, showing that he understands the knock on the program and verbalizing it. Like, he verbalized, we haven't won these games in a long time. Yeah. We got to go get this done. That right there, just Vince, was one of 3 things he said in this press conference that just absolutely had me fired up. But before you respond, I did need to start with this super chat from Matt, 2011 GT. Well, I do declare, just watched the selection show with my family and looking forward to y'all's take. Thank you for that, Matt. I just had to get like the...
Sounds like Froghorn Leghorn.
That's exactly how I heard it, and that's exactly how I said it. So thank you for that. But Vince, what was when you heard him start the press conference off with that, or the interview with ESPN off with that, what was your thoughts on that? What was your takeaway?
Look, Notre Dame is different. I think we can all appreciate that. And I think that's one of the reasons that we are fans of Notre Dame. And it's one of the reasons that Brian and I cover Notre Dame. Notre Dame is different. And Marcus Freeman understands that it's different, and he embraces the difference. And that's what has stood out to me since you interviewed him back in July, all the way up to today as the head coach. He embraces the difference that Notre Dame is. He doesn't try to go in and change stuff. He doesn't try to be different. He embraces the difference. And I think that is huge. And it's going to pay off in recruiting. It's going to pay off with his relationship with the players. It's going to pay off with his relationship with everybody on campus. he is going to be himself, just like Brian Barry in a super chat says. I can see it off to the side there. He's going to be himself. He's going to be authentic, and he's going to embrace the challenge, and he's going to embrace the differences of Notre Dame. And that's what makes him special. Too many guys come in and they try to change things. They try to deflect it. Oh, we're the same. This is come to Notre Dame. It's the same as everywhere else. It's fine. No, embrace it. Embrace the difference. That's the important thing. And that's why I'm so excited about Marcus Freeman, man. That's why I think that he's going to continue to do his thing.
He didn't say, Vince, Notre Dame in the past has struggled with those games. He said we.
Right.
Like that may seem like a little thing, but it's like, to me, it's like he's embraced the history, the tradition, the passion of Notre Dame. There was another thing that he was talking about that when he talked to the offensive captains, he was like, look, it's going to be an adjustment. There's going to be a learning. Like, he's aware that it's just because I was the D coordinator doesn't mean you guys know me like they do. And I thought that was good. The funniest part was Jesse Palmer saying, Brian Kelly was known for recruiting. Aren't you guys always the ones that keep saying Notre Dame doesn't recruit like the top programs? Brian Kelly's known for recruiting. On what planet is Brian Kelly known for recruiting?
Seriously.
I just got a chuckle out of that. But his response to that was yeah, go Vince. I mean, I see you reacting. I want to hear your, because we listened and got right on the show. We didn't have a chance to kind of vet what we thought about it. I want to hear it. Just talk to me, Vince. Talk to me.
I do declare. I'm getting the vapors. Look, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. He basically said, look, if you want to win a championship, come to Notre Dame. If you want to be set up for the rest of your life, come to Notre Dame. If you want to play at the next level, come to Notre Dame, period. And he's not going to make excuses. It's, hey, you want to be with us? Let's go. Let's ride. If you don't want to be with us, it's us against you. That's fine. Right? I mean, oh my gosh, it gets me excited. And it was a 4-minute interview, right? And if he came into my living room and he wanted to recruit my kid, and my kid said, well, I'm thinking about something, I'd backhand him and be like, dude, you're going to play for this man. And it wouldn't be because he's at Notre Dame. It's because of who he is and the fact that he has the best interests of his. He mentioned the fact that about his players. He talked about his players over and over and over in that interview about how it's about them and there's no hierarchy. It's him and them. And all he wanted to do was get in that room and give his players a hug. Like, dude, what more do you need to hear?
But then he quickly transitioned to, then it was time to talk to him, right? I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it. I thought he kept saying, you got to be yourself, right? And the thing about that is for me, Vince, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to live it. And that's the reason he asked, they were asking, like, why
you take your hat, your defensive coordinator hat, and put the
the question was kind of the premise of the players like went to bat for you, like they wanted you, like why? And his comment was, look, you just got to be yourself. I mean, but that's what you hear from people around Notre Dame. It's one thing to say it; it's another thing for people to say how genuine he is, and I think that was kind of the big thing for me. So, Vince, I want to transition in the Fiesta Bowl matchup. Obviously, Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. This is, like I said, of the options that were on the table. This is one I wouldn't have mind playing Michigan State again, to be honest with you, just because they're not on the schedule moving forward. They haven't played since 2017. Right. That's a matchup I like. This was the second of the matchups that I would have wanted to see.
I think of the potential matchups that were on the table after we kind of sifted through all the nonsense yesterday. It was Michigan State, it was Pitt, and it was Oklahoma State, right? I mean, those were the three options that Notre Dame had. And Pitt was my last because it's an ACC opponent. They see them over and over, it feels like, in the ACC. I wanted to see something different. My first choice was Michigan State and selfishly because I have ties with my family. But the best matchup, I think, the best game possibility, is Oklahoma State. Now, and I said this last night, and I'll continue to say this. I still think that Notre Dame would be favored against all three, and I think Notre Dame should be favored in all three. But I think the favorable margin is smaller with Oklahoma State. So I think it's the best matchup. It's going to be the best football game.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
think Notre Dame gets more out of it playing Oklahoma State and winning. Obviously they got to win because they do. This is a good football team. I mean, again, they went 11-1 until yesterday,
and literally this close to being a conference champion,
to being a playoff team. No, they weren't just this close to being a conference champion. They were this close to being a playoff team. Yes. I mean, I would have liked to seen how the conversation would have gone yesterday had they won. You know, what's the Cincinnati conversation? You know what I mean? Now maybe they don't get in because other things didn't happen, but they would have had a strong case to make. Their resume would have stacked up a lot better against Cincinnati and Oklahoma's or Georgia's than Notre Dame's did. But this is a good football team. It's funny, they win differently than we expect to see from the Big 12. Sure. I mean, this is a team that does not score. I mean, they do not score.
Yeah.
They win flat out with defense. And that was kind of what was fun about yesterday's game is, I mean, there were pads popping the whole game on both sides. I mean, they are a team this is not your typical bad defense Big 12 team that you're going to go hang 50 on. Now, could Notre Dame hang 50 on them? Who knows? It's a bowl game, right? You know, I mean, I haven't even begun to dive into the matchup specifically, but based on what you've seen from them, this just isn't the kind of team you're going to go hang a 50 spot on like you might have seen in bowl games of the past against Big 12 teams. Vince, they have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've won 6 games this year scoring under 30 points. They've scored 23, 28, 21, 24, 24, 23 points in wins. And here's the other thing about that. 2 of those wins where they scored in the 20s were 3 touchdown or more victories because they won 24-3 and 23-0. This is a good football team. And that's a good thing. You wanted to play a team that people are going to respect you. I think you're going to get more out of nationally beating Oklahoma State than Pitt or Michigan State.
And I think that's a really good point because Notre Dame. Okay, so right now, what do people see about Notre Dame? Oh, they got a great defense. That's why Marcus Freeman's the head coach and blah blah blah. And I think somebody actually said it on ESPN. I kind of was flipping back and forth. When I knew it was coming out at 2:30, I was like, I don't need to keep watching this. But anyway,
that's why I hit the mute button.
Yeah, they basically said somebody said something along the lines of this is going to be a low scoring game because of Notre Dame's defense and whatnot. Look. Here's the deal, folks. This is a great opportunity for Tommy Rees and the offense to show some people what's up with this offense, okay? Because the vast majority of this team offensively is going to return, and they can show people what's going on with this offense and put some points on the board. And if they do, they're going to turn some heads. Look, we all know what this offense can do because we've been watching Notre Dame the second half of the season, and now that Tommy Rees is his own guy, he's got an opportunity. He's got an opportunity, and it's going to be really fun to watch.
I really need to buy the new microphone. It's driving me crazy. I hit it 3 times. So we're going to find out if this improvement in the second half of the year is because of bad defenses or genuine improvement. Yeah. Because this is going to be the best defense they face since Wisconsin.
Great opportunity. It's a great opportunity.
So if it's a 17-13 game, then it's like, well, you know, maybe they just did do well because of the teams they played. But if they come out and move the ball on Oklahoma State and score points and, you know, get 27 to 34 plus points, then that's going to – because this is a team that only gave up 16.8 points per game. They gave up 33 points to Oklahoma, but I believe Oklahoma had either a fumble return or an interception return or something like that for a touchdown in that game, correct? I'm trying to remember that correctly. And then they had another score that was set up, I believe, by a penalty. I'm actually looking at the score now. Oklahoma had let's see here. Oklahoma had a fumble return for a touchdown. That is what they had. And then they had a safety in the game. And then Oklahoma had another touchdown drive that was a 14-yard drive. Yes, I did remember correctly.
So, no surprise there.
Right. So, I mean, they didn't give up 33 points because Oklahoma State was moving the ball, or Oklahoma was moving the ball up and down the field. Right. Oklahoma had 441 yards of offense. Some of that good chunk of that came late was they were trying to go down the field. So, I mean, this is a good, really good defense. I don't think it's an elite defense, but it's a really good defense. And as we kind of get into the matchups down the road, we'll dive more into the specifics of Oklahoma State. Sure. But if you watched the game yesterday, the thing you saw was a really aggressive, athletic front seven is what you saw. And they've got the linebacker they have, Rodriguez, is a really good football player. Kid had 120 tackles this year. And that freshman DN they have, Colin Oliver, goodness gracious. 15 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks. He was, Baylor they had no answers for him yesterday. Yeah. So this is a good football team. Jim Knowles is the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. I believe he has actually faced Notre Dame at times in the recent years because he was at Duke. Yes, he was at Duke from 2010 to 2017. So obviously he was Duke's defensive coordinator in 2016 when Notre Dame played Duke. So he's clearly someone who's, being in the ACC, he'll have some familiarity with Notre Dame to a degree. He hasn't been there since 2018, so he won't necessarily know the current personnel.
Sure.
But this is a guy that's faced Notre Dame. But I'm excited about it just because, we don't often get to watch Notre Dame play good teams that they've never played before. In recent history, usually when they play a team for the first time, it's Bowling
Ball
Green
State
or something like that. Like, Cincinnati was kind of different. They played in 1900, but yeah, they've never played Oklahoma State in a football game before.
I think this is intriguing. This is the matchup from a we never see these guys play each other matchup that I wanted. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted Michigan State because it's closer to home and it's kind of that kind of a deal, but I wanted Oklahoma State because they're the best team, I think, that they had a chance to match up with. And we're probably not going to see these guys match up again unless it's a postseason situation. So, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to, talk to Oklahoma State fans and, that kind of thing. I think that's going to be a lot of fun moving forward. And that's what the bowl season is all about, right? It's about, if you're not going to be playing for a championship, we can set that aside because they're not, right? But this is the fun part about bowl season. It's seeing matchups that you don't normally see, things of that nature. And I think that's fun.
Well, and Notre Dame plays the Pac-12 twice a year.
Correct.
They play a lot of games against the Big 12. They obviously play a lot of ACC games. They've played more and more SEC opponents recently. Notre Dame doesn't get to play the Big 12 very often.
Right.
For whatever reason, they just don't have a lot of, they had the home and home with Pitt in 15 and 16. They had the home and home with Oklahoma in 12 and 13. I don't think that they've
Texas
played
at one point, didn't
That's
they?
what I said, 15 and 16.
Pitt. You said
Did I say Pitt? Texas in 15 and 16. Okay. They had Oklahoma in 12 and 13. I can't think of any other Big 12 teams they've played in a home and home. They played Iowa State, obviously, in a bowl game recently, but that was a 7-5 Iowa State team.
Yeah,
that was not.
I'm sorry.
Like 10-2 Notre Dame against 7-5 Iowa State. That was just not an exciting game.
Not at all.
This is a Big 12 team. It's been a pretty good Big 12 team here for a while now, and this is, to me, I mean, Baylor won the conference title game, but Oklahoma State was the best team in the Big 12 this year. I mean, it's hard to win. It's hard to win rematches. The other thing I liked is Oklahoma State fell behind big early and battled back. There was no quit in Oklahoma State. Baylor tried to give them the game, but Oklahoma State just made too many mistakes themselves to win that game. But at the end of the day, this is a fun matchup. I mean, since 2015, right? Notre Dame has had 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Notre Dame has had 6 10-plus win seasons since 2015. Oklahoma State's had 4. I mean, so they won 10 games in 15, 16, 17. Then they won 11 games this year. This is going to be a fun matchup, and something a matchup we not only do not get to see very often. It's one we've never seen before.
Yep, absolutely.
The Fiesta Bowl, I thought, is also interesting because, number one, the Peach Bowl is a major bowl. But I just feel like the perception is that it's not. It doesn't feel like a major bowl. It's not rose, sugar, cotton, orange.
Fiesta.
Yeah, and Notre Dame. Yeah. Notre Dame's had Notre Dame's history at the Fiesta started off great. First Fiesta Bowl game for Notre Dame was on January 1st, 1989. Notre Dame beat West Virginia 34-21 to clinch the national championship. They've played 4 times since then. The last 3 times against OSU. Right? 2 different OSUs. Ohio State, twice, Oregon State, and then, of course, now they get Oklahoma. So 4 straight games against an OSU. Also played Colorado in a Fiesta Bowl. They've lost their last 4 Fiesta Bowl opportunities, including, last 2 against Ohio State. So Oklahoma State's 2-0 in the Fiesta Bowl. They had their last Fiesta Bowl berth was on January 1st, 2012. If you remember correctly, Vince, that was that great game between Oklahoma State and Stanford.
Okay.
That Oklahoma State won 41-38. So that was a phenomenal game. Their last one, I believe, was like in 1976 against BYU. So it's been a minute. But you look at Notre Dame's big game bowl history. I think this is the thing that intrigues me the most, Vince. As you know, I wrote an article today at Irish Breakdown, as I mentioned earlier, and it was the Marcus Freeman era begins with an opportunity to slay a dragon. And if Marcus Freeman wants to be a champion, there's some things he has to accomplish that past Notre Dame coaches couldn't, including Brian Kelly. Beating top 10 teams. Talk about winning big games, right? No New Year's Six Bowl victories and however, almost 27 years. There's all these dragons Notre Dame has to slay before it can get to the ultimate destination, which is the national championship. For Marcus Freeman to get an opportunity, and again, they got to go win the game, right? Again, we're not here saying, oh, this is a gimme, they're going to light this. No. The only team I'd have probably felt that about was Michigan State. Honestly, I think they would have tore Michigan State up because it's just a bad Notre Dame can stop the run and Michigan State can't stop the pass. I mean, it would have been a bad matchup. This is a good matchup. This is one Notre Dame is going to have to earn. If they win this game, they will have beaten a good football team. And so for me, this kind of set up perfectly, in my opinion, for Notre Dame because you get a chance to end the New Year's Six bowl streak and beat a top 10 team while doing it because Oklahoma State finished 9th.
That's right.
I mean, this is a tremendous.
Michigan State ended 10th.
Right. This is a tremendous opportunity for Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, especially, to sort of kick off his tenure at Notre Dame.
That's actually another reason I didn't want Pitt. Because I didn't think that they were ranked high enough. Because I don't believe they
finished 12th. And the ACC has no respect.
Correct.
No respect.
Yeah.
If you're not beating Clemson, it doesn't matter who you play in the ACC.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And Clemson ended up 19th. Like they ended up in the top 20 after the season that they were having at the beginning. And I mean, everybody wrote them off. Yeah. I mean, they have an opportunity to be a 10-win team after all of that craziness.
But this is a huge opportunity for Notre Dame. You get a chance to really slay kind of sort of two dragons. One is completely done. I mean, you get the New Year's Six, you get the monkey off your back. Talked a lot about that. I didn't care as much about that with Brian Kelly. Right. Because you're in year 12. That doesn't matter. It's about championships.
No, exactly.
With Marcus Freeman, I do think that could be a tone setter for him as a head football coach. Get that big bowl game victory and beat a top 10 team. You've got to love this opportunity for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame.
No question. I mean, he has everything set out in front of him. I mean, it's laid out perfectly. I mean, well, I shouldn't say perfectly. Perfectly would have been a chance in the CFP. All right, that's perfect. But this is a less pressurized version of perfect. Okay, because that's all they could talk about on ESPN is how since 1998 Notre Dame's 0-7 and they've been beaten by an average of 23 points in New Year's Six and BCS bowl games and all the talk.
And it's all true.
It's all true. It's 100% true. But that's, of course, the narrative. They're going to ride that thing until it bucks them. And that's what Marcus Freeman has the opportunity to do. He has an opportunity to buck that trend. And that's huge. That is huge. And will the media and the narratives and all of those things maybe blow it up to be bigger than it is in the offseason? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they will. Okay. But what a great place to be in. I mean, the hype going in, if they win, okay, if they win and if they win in a convincing fashion, the hype going into the Ohio State game, in September, it's gonna be off the charts. Yeah.
And that's going to be huge no matter what. But now you have some positive. Vince's point is not only is that going to be a big matchup, but now you have some positive momentum of Marcus Freeman kicking things off with a win over another OSU. Yeah.
You watch the recruiting from January 2nd on. You watch what happens in recruiting. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a heck of a lot of momentum for Notre Dame.
No question. No question. So, and there's a lot now. So, I mean, to me, that's the fact of Marcus Freeman kind of being able to potentially slay those dragons to start off his career and the momentum piece. I've said this before, Vince. I think the good thing about bowl games is that when you win them, it gives you a lot of positive vibes going into the offseason. You don't want to end your season with a loss. And that is the one kind of goodish thing about a bowl game compared to the playoff is you obviously 4 teams in the playoff, 3 of them are going to end their season with a loss.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you've got a chance to end your season with a win. So really, Would I have preferred a bigger name team? Sure, but that wasn't in the cards. I mean, there was nobody that could have been that. I mean,
right.
And because all those big name teams either are in the playoff or didn't handle their business, right?
Or they have to go to certain bowls, like Ohio State, for example. That would have been a big name team, not in the college football playoff, but they have to go to the Rose Bowl. They're the next highest ranked Big Ten team.
Right, but like Oklahoma didn't handle their business, Clemson didn't handle their business, Texas A&M didn't handle their business, right? I mean,
them are even in a they're not even in a New Year's Six bowl, like
none of
that.
Them. Yeah, exactly. None of them. Yep. So it's exciting for me. I want to discuss a little bit, and we're going to take some questions here in a few. But I did want to discuss a little bit this matchup, just kind of a quick overview of Oklahoma State. Obviously, Oklahoma State went 11-2 this season. Mike Gundy is their head coach. Mike Gundy's been the head coach at Oklahoma State. He took over his first year. Now, of course, for those that you don't know, he was the quarterback for Oklahoma State when they had Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas.
Yeah, so he's really good at handing off.
He also had Hartley Dykes, who a receiver back on that team, who had 1,000 yards. I mean, they threw the ball a little something too.
I'm kidding, but yeah.
But so he's like an Oklahoma State legend. He took over as head coach the same year that Charlie Weis took over at Notre Dame. That's how long Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State. His first big season was in 2010. They went 11-2. Then the next year they went to 12-1. I still contend that 2011 Oklahoma State team, and I will take this. This is another one of the things I'll take. I'm taking a lot of stuff to my grave this year, right? This is another one of those. They should have had an opportunity to play for a championship that year over Alabama. LSU beat Bama at Bama. Oklahoma State got knocked out because if you remember, they played I think it was like a Thursday night game against Iowa State. And it was the week that I think it was it Oklahoma State that had players or had some staff members that were killed in that plane crash. You remember that, like right before the game?
I don't.
And there was it was a really tough situation. They went on the road, lost to Iowa State, but the rest of that season, that was a great team. And I just felt like that was that Brandon Whedon team. I believe they had Justin Blackman at quarterback. That was a heck of a Oklahoma State team. Went and beat an Andrew Luck-led Stanford team in the Fiesta Bowl 41-38. That was one of the best bowl games of the last 15 years. Phenomenal game. After that, kind of a couple, like I said, 8-5, 10-3, 7-6, and 3 straight 10-3 seasons. Then you go 7-6, 8-5, 8-3, and then this past year 11-2. So, and he's been pretty good in bowl games. I'm looking at it now, Vince. He is 10-5 in bowl games. So Mike Gundy's had some good success during his tenure in bowl games. 10-5 is not bad at all.
Sure.
And obviously has a Fiesta Bowl win under his belt. So he has a major bowl victory under his belt. They've got a couple Cotton Bowl losses as well. And this is a good football program at Iowa State, in my opinion. I mean, their down years are like they'll have the occasional 7-5, 8-4, but they're consistently a good football team, in my opinion, and a good matchup for Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman in his first game.
I'm going to address one of the comments just because it made me shake my head, and if anybody saw that, they're probably wondering why. The couple people in there say, "Oh, they should have been playing Baylor they can't play Baylor."
Yeah.
Okay, Baylor is the Big 12 champ. Yeah. They have to go to the Sugar Bowl.
Right.
Notre Dame cannot go to the Sugar Bowl. Okay. So they have to go to an at-large. So
right.
They can't play Baylor. They're playing Oklahoma State.
So some of the people may not have been in the show last night, so we'll break it down for you real quick. There's there's 6 New Year's Six bowls, right? 2 of them every year are playoff games, and it's a rotating thing. So this year, Orange Bowl and Cotton Bowl are playoff games. So
correct.
Obviously, the ACC champ can't play in the Orange Bowl this year. And then the Rose Bowl, when it's not a playoff game, is always Big 10 versus Pac-12. And then the Sugar Bowl, when it's not a playoff game, is Big 12 versus SEC champ. Now, when obviously an SEC champ is in the college football playoff, they sort of go to the next highest ranked team. SEC has 2 teams in the playoffs, so then it's the next highest ranked team, assuming that they are. I'd be curious if the SEC we talked about this last. Are they they're just locked in as 18th
or something? Yeah.
I'd be curious about that, but that wasn't the case. Ole Miss just slides right into that spot as a top 10 team. Yeah. And then the Big 12 champ, assuming they're not in the playoff, is in the Sugar Bowl as well. Obviously, Oklahoma State and Baylor, neither of them made the playoff. Baylor ended up being the Big 12 champ because they won the game yesterday. They beat
won the Big 12
State, so they're the Big 12 champ, so they get the automatic bid. So then the other two games are basically at-large versus at-large. And again, I still don't know if like it was official that Pitt had to go to the Peach Bowl. I mean, I never heard anyone say anything but that.
Yeah, I found something online that said because their ACC tie-in was gone, they had to go to the Sugar Bowl was the one that was taking the ACC champ for some reason.
You mean the Peach Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Because if it's normally an at-large versus at-large,
okay,
then that would be. But they were going.
Where does the ACC champ usually go?
Orange.
Okay,
which is a playoff game.
Right. So that's what I had seen.
Right. Yeah. And so Pitt was going to be somewhere. We know that because they were the ACC champ. And so the Fiesta is at-large versus at-large. So they were going to get a non-conference champion. There was no other way because all the Power 5 conference champs are locked into a bowl game. Correct. So in a normal year, Orange goes, the ACC goes to the Orange, Big 10 goes to the Rose, Pac-12 goes to the Rose, Big 12 goes to the Sugar, and the SEC goes to the Sugar.
So the ACC is the non-combined, like they don't have an automatic person or conference that they play because there's 5 big, there's 5 Power 5, right?
This year.
Well, who do they
normally the Orange always goes to the Orange. Oh, and at-large.
That's what I'm saying.
At-large,
that's the point I was making. Right. They're not automatically tied in with another conference.
Right.
They're always against an at-large. That's
correct.
What I was going to say.
Correct. Yes. So that's why that's why they get Oklahoma State. So even though Oklahoma State was sort of the regular season champion in the Big 12, it's about who wins the conference championship game.
Right.
And that's kind of like Georgia had a better regular season record in the ACC, but they lost the conference championship game. So if there was no playoff, that's what it would be. So I'm going to do something this week too, Vince, where I'm going to say what would if they expanded the playoff the way that I want to do it, what would those matchups look like?
That'd be fun.
So I'll have something like that this week too.
I love D-Rock. He's my guy because he used to be a principal. So I'm gonna answer his question here. He says, I wonder if Vince has ever been tossed out of a baseball game because they're talking about my saltiness, which I guess is coming through. So I apologize.
What are you salty about?
The comments in the comments in the chat or whatever. But yeah, whatever. That's fine. I have never been kicked out as a coach. I have been kicked out as a player because I tend to make comments under my breath. And when you're a catcher, the umpire can hear you. So I have been tossed out of a game as a player, never as a coach. So just figure I'd throw.
I got tossed out of a baseball game once.
Did you?
Yeah, just once.
Yeah, just once for me. It is what it is.
I'm
sure the baseball coaching one's coming, but
I probably should have been tossed out of more, but I was really good at my inside voice is really good. But I should have got tossed out of a baseball game my senior year against a school in Virginia called Notre Dame, actually.
Oh, really?
But, it's a different story for a different day. I have to tell you about that one. I think I did tell you about that. The big guy that was hanging over the plate. I think I told you about that. Remember? I think so.
Oh, you did tell me about that. Yes.
Anyway, somebody asked who the sponsor is. This is the Sony PlayStation Fiesta Bowl too.
That's true.
So I'm assuming the Notre Dame players are going to get in some
media.
Yeah, they're not going to give us PlayStations, buddy. I'm sorry. We may get like a PlayStation bag, but we're not going to get PlayStations.
Come on, a guy can hope, right?
Yeah. But I would imagine the players are going to get some PlayStation stuff, so that's going to be pretty sweet. So
that's pretty. What? And people, I don't know if people understand what happens when you go to a major bowl game, which this is. I mean, players get some swag.
Yeah,
like
they're going to get PS5s. They're going to get all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's going to be sweet.
It's pretty sweet. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Right. And that's one of the challenges of a game like this is you've got to be able to balance letting them have fun and enjoying themselves with also that, but there's still business to be done. Right. And I think the best coaches need to be able to handle that because they're not playing for a championship. So they should be allowed to enjoy the experience of being in Phoenix and all the things go with it. But having the leadership to say, but when it's time to focus and lock in, we focus and lock in. And that's making sure the guys are back on for curfew. The guys aren't, you know what I mean? There's those type of things. But so that's going to be a big part of it. So I like this matchup, Vince. Obviously, Oklahoma State's 11-12. We're just going to run through real quick.
Yep.
Their schedule this season. Let's get it back here real quick. I just went away from it like a knucklehead. So they kicked the season off against Southwest Missouri State, won 23-16. Their next game, was against Tulsa. They won 28-23. Next, they played at Boise State. I actually watched that game, 21-20 victory for Oklahoma State. They played Kansas State to kick off their Big 12 season, won 31-20, beat Baylor at home 24-14. At Iowa State was their next, or at Texas was their next game. They were down pretty big in that game, if I remember correctly. They were definitely down late, and then came back and won that game 32-24. Then they went on the road, lost to Iowa State 24-21. Then they went on a roll after that. Beat Kansas 55-3, beat West Virginia on the road 24-3, beat TCU at home 63-17. Beat Texas Tech on the road 23-0, and then won the Bedlam matchup against Oklahoma 37-33, and then of course yesterday lost the Big 12 championship to Baylor 21-16 in a game that they were down late, or down the entire game, battled back, and then were an inch away from being the Big 12 champs. And I would imagine that would have sent Notre Dame. I'd be curious what the matchup would have been then. I would imagine it would have been Baylor, but I don't know how far Baylor would have fallen at that point in time.
I don't think so. The way I think it would have gone is no matter what happened in that Big 12 game, I think Baylor's going to the Sugar Bowl.
No, they can't.
Why?
No, because the 4 teams ahead of Oklahoma State all won yesterday.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like,
I see
if they wouldn't have got in.
Assumed. Okay, you're right. I in my assumption, I was thinking if Oklahoma State won, they would be in the college football playoff.
That would have been the interesting debate we talked about earlier. Like, what would that have done to Cincinnati and Georgia and teams like that? Right.
Yeah.
But the way that it all fell, there's a chance they could have been left out, just like Notre Dame was.
That's a good point.
Then, if they would have been in the Sugar Bowl, then I wonder if Baylor would have been the pick. I don't know. I mean, because I'm looking at the rankings. I don't know if the next highest team would have been.
If Baylor loses, though,
BYU, right? So maybe they'd have fallen behind BYU.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question, because then Baylor was a
3-loss
team,
10-3.
I think they fall pretty far back. Not pretty far, but they fall back.
The next option, Vince, would have been what? BYU. I'm just gonna pull the rankings up because I might be forgetting somebody, because I'm looking at it now. Ohio State. So behind Notre Dame, you got Ohio State, who's already in the Rose Bowl. Ole Miss is in the Sugar. Oklahoma State would have gone to the Sugar if they would have beat Baylor.
Correct.
Michigan State, Pitt, and the Peach. So, I mean, that's 12 and 10 and 12. 11 is Utah, and then 13 is BYU.
Wow.
So, depending on how far, so I still think, because it would have been such a close game, I think they probably would have kept Baylor ahead of BYU and put Baylor in the against Notre Dame.
You're probably right about that.
The other option would have been BYU.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't love that. I don't love that, because beating BYU does nothing for Notre Dame.
I don't love that either. And at that
point,
no
disrespect to BYU, but just perception-wise, another independent team, they would have called it the independent championship, all this other nonsense. There's nothing to gain for Notre Dame by beating BYU, and everything to gain for BYU.
And to be honest with you, if that all goes down, I want Michigan State as my opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would have been guaranteed that Michigan State goes to the Peach. You know what I mean? Like, I would have been, I would have been lobbying my wife. There's no else for me to lobby, but that's who I would have wanted at that point, would be Michigan State. But,
and then Robert Nichols says Baylor beat BYU. That doesn't matter. It's about where the ranking is. It's the ranking. It would have been about whether or not they would have put BYU ahead of. Now, Robert, we could debate whether or not they should have had Baylor higher, BYU higher, because they won the head-to-head, but that wouldn't have mattered. Right. BYU beat. Let me rephrase that. Whether or not they should have had Baylor ahead of BYU because they won the head-to-head, but the point would have been how would they have handled it? Because there are teams, Oregon lost to Ohio State. They're ranked lower because they have more losses. Baylor would have had more losses than BYU. BYU's 10-2, Baylor's 10-3. So it would have been an interesting deal, but it doesn't matter now because Baylor won. They're in the Sugar Bowl, and it's Oklahoma State. So I like this matchup, Vince. Oklahoma State, again, really good defensive team. It gave up 16.8 points per game this season. And honestly, yesterday, it says a lot about how good their defense is, that they were able to only give up 21 points to Baylor yesterday, despite turning the ball over, 5 times yesterday? 4 times. They turned the ball over 4 times yesterday. 3 of them set up potential scores. If it's not for those turnovers, Baylor couldn't do a whole lot on Oklahoma State. And they made great adjustments at halftime. I mean, that quarterback at one point completed like 15, 16 straight passes in a row, that freshman quarterback. And then they came out second half and they rattled him the whole half. I mean, they just were in his face. He's making smart decisions the first half, and then the second half, he's just making dumb decisions because they were really, I mean, great job by Jim Knowles and the defensive staff to make adjustments at halftime in that game yesterday. But really, really good defense. If you look at their defensive numbers, they finished the season ranked 7th in scoring defense, one spot ahead of Notre Dame. So Notre Dame was right behind him. Notre Dame actually finished the season 9th in scoring defense. And I say 9th because Oklahoma State was tied for 7th with Penn State. So that's the 7, 8, and then 9 is the way that they do that. And I'm going to look up here against Power 5 teams. Oklahoma State ranked 3rd in scoring defense against Power 5 teams only. Notre Dame ranked 7th. So now their offense, different story.
Yes.
Their defense also ranked 3rd nationally in total defense, which is basically yards per game, and 4th in yards allowed per play. So Tommy Rees and his unit are going to have a lot on their hands.
Like I said, this is a great opportunity for Notre Dame's offense. Yep. It's a great opportunity.
Yep.
I love it.
Now, their offense is a little bit of a different story. They averaged 30.6 points per game this season, and not a real great offense. Now, they were hindered yesterday because of the fact that their top running back didn't play yesterday. Jalen Warren didn't play. He rushed for over 1,100 yards this year, 11 touchdowns. He's a good player.
He looked like he was dressed on the sideline, but he didn't play.
They tried him, and he was one of those game time decision goes. Yeah, assuming he's not going pro, and I don't know that I haven't heard any buzz about him being a high draft pick.
Yeah.
But assuming he plays, but he's a good, hard-nosed physical runner, average 4.8 yards a carry. He's not like a dynamic,
not going to run away from you kind of guy. Yeah. Right.
He's a real tough physical kid. We saw the Jackson kid played yesterday. He's a hard runner, just lacks speed, as we saw on that, honestly, on that last play.
Yeah.
A guy with a little bit. I just feel like Kyron Williams scores there. As great of a play as that was by the Baylor kid, Chris Tyree definitely scores there, right? I mean, it just comes down to a foot race.
I actually thought it was a great play call to get outside. I thought it was a great play call.
Well, because they started that kind of it got Baylor to sink, and then he bounces it, right?
I thought it was great.
It was an inside zone with a cutback. Yeah, I mean, it was, he's a good runner, tough, hard-nosed kid. He didn't play yesterday. Spencer Sanders is an intriguing kid. He's a dynamic runner. That's the one thing that's going to be interesting. He can run. He had over 500 yards rushing this year, had 6 touchdowns on the ground. That's been a problem for Notre Dame this season, right? That when they've had some issues defensively, it's against a quarterback that can run. He's got a big arm. He can throw the ball downfield. Bad decision maker. That's the MO on him. The kid's a bad decision maker, or can be. He can be. Let's just say he's inconsistent. Threw 12 picks in the year. 6 of them came in the last 2 games. He also threw 3 in the first game against Baylor. So but the thing is they're physical up front, in my opinion. They run sort of a traditional spread offense, a lot of inside zone, mid zone, outside zone, a lot of counter. The diamond formation, which we've talked a lot about, you're going to see from them. They do it a lot of different ways. They'll put a tight end and a second back. They'll put 2 tight ends. Against Baylor in the first game, they actually put a lineman as one of the diamond guys, Vince, and it was just like, short yardage and hammer it there. So really, really like this matchup for Notre Dame, because I feel like we're going to learn a lot about the Notre Dame defense, because they play a team that's real physical and a team that's got a mobile quarterback, right? Those are the things we wonder about. Then we say, okay, how good is the Notre Dame offense really? Well, they're about to face one of the 5 to 10 best defenses in college football this year.
Yep.
So if they're successful, then you can look at it and say, okay, Tommy Rees has got this bad boy rolling. If they're not successful, then it's like, okay, there's still work to be done here.
Right.
Let's figure it out. And that was one of the concerns that we had kind of about, getting a bowl game against a team that you're going to smash is, what are you going to learn about yourself? I feel like you're playing some of what's been your kryptonite this season. It gives you a chance to really see how far you've come as a program. So that's going to kind of do it. And we'll look, the next few weeks, we'll have tons of matchups. We're going to take a deep dive. We're going to do some film breakdowns. We're going to do all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to give everybody just a little bit of a taste little bit of a taste of Oklahoma State. We are not going to focus on them a lot the next few days.
Right.
We're going to focus more on Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But
there's a lot of questions in the chat about who's coming back, who's not coming back.
We're going to have the show about that either tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's probably going to be the Marcus Freshman press conference. Freeman press conference. Tuesday, Marcus Freshman press conference. Tuesday is going to be I heard it. Okay. Tuesday is going to be more of the show where we talk about who will or won't come back. Yeah. We promise we'll get to it.
Because Brian needs to do a little bit of digging, too, to, talk to some people and see where people are swaying and all that different stuff.
And who wants to come back. I mean, exactly. I heard – so, for example, the reason I want to do this is there was one player that I just assumed was gone, a veteran player that I've heard now has talked to the staff about, hey, I'd like to use my COVID year. And I didn't expect them to want to do that. So
that's good news.
I want to kind of find out from some of that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
That'll be, and it was a defensive player. So I'm looking, it's very interesting. So that'll be interesting to see. But before we go, Vince, we do have some good questions and some super chats. I would like to kind of go through those. Let's work through the.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Somebody did throw in the chat, and I lost it at this point, but and it's off topic, obviously. But they heard Chip Long is headed to Georgia Tech.
He is yes. I talked to Chip a little bit ago. He is the new offensive coordinator at Georgia Tech. So
that's awesome. Cool.
I don't know if I would have taken that job if I was him, to be honest with you, because Jeff Collins is kind of going into if you don't win now, you may be gone mode. Yeah. And it's always kind of dangerous. But he did the same thing at Notre Dame. That's the thing about Chip is he's a real confident dude.
It's a really good point. That's a really
and he did the same thing at Notre Dame, right? And he was like, "Look, I'm confident in myself. Took a risk on myself, so good hire." Now, obviously, that's going to impact Chris. I don't see Chris Watt going back to Tulane now, so I'm curious what's going to happen there.
Oh yeah, so he could go to Georgia Tech.
I did want to get So Matt Lash yesterday put a super chat up that we did not get to.
Oh man,
because we were having those issues with. No, it's all good. He reached out and I told him I'd answer the question today. He said. You guys have here we go. Let me see here. He said he wanted to know if we thought that the Big Ten has a new king, and if you think Michigan is set up for sustained success. I wanted to kick this to you, Vince, first.
So what was it again? I'm sorry.
Do we believe that the Big Ten has a new king, and if Michigan, being that new king, is set up for sustained success?
I mean, I don't claim to have a bunch of intimate knowledge about Michigan. I will say that. So I'm not sure about recruiting classes and things of that nature. I think the head coach is volatile, to be honest with you. And I don't know if that by itself will allow sustained success. I mean, 3 weeks ago, he's on the hot seat, right? I mean, because of his success in big games. And I'm not saying he was going to be fired, but there were some legitimate questions.
Well, there's people that wanted him gone after last season.
Right. So there you go. So sustained success right now, you cannot dismiss Ohio State. You can't. I mean, do they have their holes? Absolutely. But you can't dismiss them. I'm not going to dismiss Michigan State, although I think there was a little bit of smoke and mirrors this year with how good they were and, their record and some things like that. But now they have a sustained head coach. You can be there for a while, obviously.
Right.
I think that they can do some things. So I wouldn't say that they're the head and shoulders, going to be the king of the Big Ten. I'm not ready.
I think they were the king this year.
Okay, and that's fair. I think that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
But I don't think that's sustained. I don't know that that can be. I think they can sustain themselves being competitive.
The question was, are they like the new king moving forward? Is what Matt meant. All I'm saying is they were clearly the king this year.
Yeah.
But I still think there's work to be done because the reason Ohio State is the king of the Big Ten is because they have done it consistently over a period of years.
And I don't know that they have a dynamic quarterback.
Right.
There's a lot of question marks for me.
Right. Like, let's just say hypothetically, Vince, that the Big 12 and the SEC and the Texas did not sell their souls to the devil to go to the SEC, and the Big 12 is going to stay intact. Just because Baylor and Oklahoma State toppled them this year doesn't mean they're the new kings. You got to do it more than once.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing for me. Michigan still has to prove that they can beat Penn State consistently. They haven't done that. It's kind of like every other year, right? Michigan State, as you mentioned, Michigan State beat them again, right? I mean, they did. They beat them again. And so there's still work to be done. What I think Jim Harbaugh has done has gotten the program back on track to being what people thought they were.
Next year's a big year for them to see if they can sustain it. They've got a big question specifically at quarterback. Do they stick with McNamara or do they go with this young kid who is
JJ McCarthy?
Right. So I think that's going to be huge. And Chris G threw this up, and I wanted to put it up here. If Day leaves, then UM will be the king until Ohio State gets a proven coach.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's fair. And I would also say if he leaves, Luke Fickell's got a pretty – I mean, depends on what Luke Fickell does at Cincinnati this year, too, the way they finish things off. But I would think that if Ohio State loses their head coach, it's going to be a hard charge for Luke Fickell.
No question. Absolutely. Because there's nobody on staff you look at. There's no Ryan Day after Urban Meyer on the staff. Right. The other thing, too, is to me, Ohio State or Michigan doesn't need to beat Ohio State next year to still be like this sustained success thing. But what you can't do – look, it's – for any program, I don't think Notre Dame has to go on the road and beat Ohio State to be legitimate. Just like, and I'm not going to then be unfair say, but Michigan does. No, what you can't do, and this is true for Notre Dame and Michigan, is you can't go there and get pounded. If you go there and do like it used to be, you lose there, but you lose in a competitive game, and then the next year you win at home in a competitive game, right? That's when the rivalry is back, and then occasionally you'll pull an offset on the other team's turf and that kind of thing.
That's what Michigan Ohio State is supposed to be. You know what I mean? Exactly.
But they are positioned, in my opinion, to stay here. They have some good players coming back. They've got some youth in some areas. They should be bringing back a decent amount of their secondary. A lot of their D tackles come back, but they're probably going to lose Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo. At least one of them for sure. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson is going to be gone. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And they should bring a lot back on their offensive line. They've got a lot. They're going to lose a couple guys. I think the Vistardis, I believe, is gone. I believe Stuber's gone at right tackle too, but Ryan Hayes should be able to come back. They've got some other young guys coming back. Barnhart is coming back, and Zinter's coming back. And then they've got a lot of guys behind them that are returning. So Shamar Moore did a great job with that unit this year. They're going to be going into year 2 of the McDonald's defense next year, which is going to mean one of two things. One, the players get better. They understand them. Or two, the rest of the Big Ten is going to have more film on it and know how to attack it better. I mean, or maybe a combination of both. So it's going to certainly be interesting, but to me, doing it once doesn't make you the king. You've got to do it sustained. It's like LSU's not the king of the SEC because they won it in 2019 because there was no sustained success. And that's what Michigan has to avoid. And Jim Harbaugh's not at Orgeron. So I don't see – he's volatile, but not in the kind of way we saw with that Orgeron. And so I don't see them falling back to 7-5 and that kind of thing. I think they'll still be a 10-2 caliber team, in my opinion, at worst. Now here's the other part too, Vince, is we haven't looked at their schedule. I couldn't tell you what their schedule is. I'm going to put that up because this is the other thing too, is you go out there and have a really easy schedule next year or a really hard schedule next year. And if I remember correctly, they have a pretty easy one next year, if I remember. Yes. Colorado State at home, Hawaii at home, UConn at home, Maryland at home, at Iowa, home against Penn State, home against Nebraska, at Michigan State, home against Illinois, bye week, home against Indiana, at Rutgers, at Ohio State. That's a pretty freaking easy schedule. Wow. Yeah, so their non-conference is Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. That's embarrassing. I'm sorry.
Really? Michigan? Good job.
Yeah.
The Michigan hate is back in
They
full
don't
force.
Play Wisconsin next year. They don't play Purdue next year. They don't play Minnesota next year. So they only get 2 of the 5 best West teams.
That's weak.
So, I mean, that's, it is what it is. But now there's pressure. You got to go to at least 10-2. I mean, when your 3 toughest games are home against Penn State, at Michigan State, at Ohio State,
the only 2 losses at least 10-2 on there are Michigan State and Ohio State. Right?
Well, I'd say of the Penn State home game, that you got to win 2 of those, right?
Okay.
I mean, to go 11-1, if you go 1-2 in those games, then because what I'm saying is, like, let's say they get upset at home against Penn State and then beat Michigan State, something like that, but you got to go at least 1-2 in those games. If you go, you know what though? I mean, at Iowa, that's never a cakewalk. Let's be honest. I mean, regular season's different than a bowl game, and this was not a great Iowa team, but playing at Iowa is a little bit of a different animal. But yeah, I mean, of those 4 games, at Iowa, home against Penn State, at Michigan State, at Ohio State, you've got to go 2-2 in those games at least.
Sure.
Right. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So that's Michigan. So Matt, I apologize for not getting to that question last night. I appreciate you reaching out to me on the DM, letting me know it, and did it in a cool way, not like a a bad way. So I really appreciate that. So I want to
right.
get that in.
Absolutely.
So Vince, what we'll do is we'll you work through the super chats if you don't mind, and I'm going to look through and see if there's some other comments that I want to pull up.
Roll to the top.
Searcher Green is not optimistic about a lot of points being scored in this game.
It's fine. He's allowed.
So I think Old Grim, does he have the first one?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yep. So that is, you want me up top, right?
Yeah, I want you to start with the super chats, and then I'll kind of work through the other things.
Old Grim, thanks for the super chat. Should be a favorable matchup for the Irish. Do you think the win will get any recognition from anyone? Yeah, I do, especially from the offensive side of things. So, and we touched on it, Old Grim, and I'm sure you were paying attention as we went through the last 55 minutes. But I think this is the big opportunity for the offense. Okay. Yeah. And I would not be surprised in any way if the defense had a lot of success. I'm not overly impressed with Oklahoma State's offense, but this is a huge opportunity for Tommy Rees. Huge. So they will get recognition offensively for sure.
I just think overall they'll get recognition because it's a Big 12 opponent. It was a team that finished, ranked high in the regular season, all that kind of stuff. Now, is this going to be the same as beating Georgia or Oklahoma or no, it's not. But again, we have to look at it a little differently because it's the Marcus Freeman era. This game would have a completely different vibe if it was still Brian Kelly's era. And this isn't even a shot on Brian Kelly. It's year 12 versus game 1.
Exactly is the
difference. So yeah, and look, let's be honest. You watched ESPN today. They're giving Marcus Freeman a lot of favorable coverage for 2 reasons. Number one is I think he's an Ohio State grad.
Yep,
and all those Ohio State guys know
exactly,
right?
And that panel is made up of Herb Street, Ohio State, Galloway, Ohio State. Like,
right?
Yeah, they're going to be nice to him.
So yeah, I mean, and he's young, he's energetic, he's a new face. I do think
Herb Street called Notre Dame the new cool program,
right? Okay? Notre Dame doesn't get that kind of positive vibe, and then there's some dumb things said about Notre Dame from some people, but the point is he's going to get some positive press until he gives them a reason not to give him positive press. Right. So if they go out and beat Oklahoma State, they're going to sell that nationally on ESPN because it's a good story, and what they like more than hating on Notre Dame is making money.
Right.
And Marcus Freeman will be a good story. And then if the success follows the story, that makes it even better.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that is something where they would get favorable recognition. But again, it's more about creating a momentum within your program. You beat a top 10 team in a major bowl. That's a good thing. I have two things I want to get to, Vince, here real quick before the next super chat. Joel Anderson says, how much freedom do you believe Marcus Freeman gives Tommy Rees on the offensive side of the ball to change things up from how they went under BK? He'll give him the freedom to do it from everything we've been told. He's going to let Tommy Rees on the offense. Look, Tommy Rees is not going to run some offense that's like, oh my God, it's unrecognizable from what they've done in the past. I mean, he played for Brian Kelly. He's coached under Brian Kelly. There's going to be some similar philosophies there.
Absolutely.
My hope is that it just becomes more modernized.
Right.
Brian Kelly's offensive philosophy at the very core of it wasn't a bad one. It's a good philosophy. It was implemented poorly because of emphasis on certain things, and it was very outdated. If Tommy Rees can modernize it, then it'll be explosive. And that's the thing I'm looking for. And then I wanted to say this too, extreme pacifist. Marcus Freeman is the first Korean-American to become head coach in college football. Shout out to all my Korean brothers and sisters in the USA. Go Irish. That is correct, because I believe his mother is Korean, correct?
I
believe so.
I think that's accurate, though. Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. Yeah.
So, yes, but thank you for that. Thank you for that chance. So, Vince, do you have another super chat you want to get to?
Do. Justin Fleming, more of a comment in his super chat. But thank you, Justin. It says Notre Dame is going to lay waste to the Oklahoma State Cowpokes. Go Irish.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive vibes around Notre Dame right now. There's no question.
No doubt about that. Jordan, thank you for the super chat. New Year's 6 doesn't count as a significant bowl win. Worse than LSU bowl. Texas A&M in the Cotton in 94. Is it until next year when Notre Dame wins a national championship?
I'm going to disagree with you strongly on that one, Jordan. It may not count to you, but it counts because it is a major bowl. It's a Fiesta Bowl. It's a big name bowl, and it's a top 10 Power 5 opponent. I'm sorry, it's not. It may not be a sexy top 10 Power 5 opponent, but it's a top 10 Power 5 opponent. So it 100% counts if they win, just like it would count if they lose. So it's not national championship or the game means nothing. There are levels to this, and this would be a big win. Is it a win that all of a sudden validates Notre Dame as a program? No, because that requires a national championship. But it absolutely is a big thing, and it's something that we should celebrate correctly as we evaluate the program. But it's also not something we should make more than it is. But that's a mistake. But what also is a mistake, right? What's also a mistake is making it to seem as if it doesn't mean anything no matter what you do. That's unfair to the program. That's unfair to the players, and it also is, to me, unfair to a guy coaching his first game. Again, if it was a Brian Kelly thing, maybe looking differently. But even if it was Brian Kelly, I think the Oklahoma State matchup is one that I would have embraced because we would have learned something about the changes. Let's just say Brian Kelly had stayed and they go out and have a real good performance offensively against Oklahoma State. That would have told us that the changes that were made in the second half were legitimate. Right. And if they got embarrassed because the O-line didn't play well, then we would have had a measuring stick. It's not like playing Michigan State or Pitt, who just don't have great defenses. So I think this is a matchup that I like in no matter what the circumstances were. It just, to me, means even more because you have a coach coaching his first game.
Brian Barry with the super chat. Thank you very much. Be yourself. That's how you get players to buy in and build trust. Freeman is authentic. Kelly never was.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he said in the press conference was the be yourself thing, which I really liked.
Jordan back with a super chat. Thanks, Jordan. He says, Brian, you hammered all of us this summer that said Notre Dame needed to go undefeated to get in the playoff. What do you think going forward?
I think the same thing I've always thought. Notre Dame doesn't have to go undefeated to get in the playoff. It would have helped them this year. They didn't go undefeated last year, and they still got in. They would have got in 2017 had they not lost to Miami and Stanford with one loss. They would have got in 2015 if they would have pounded Wake Forest, pounded BC, who sucked, and then gone on the road and beaten a top 5 Stanford team. They would have got in that year too. So it's like you can say all you want. I hammered you because there's no evidence that Notre Dame has to go undefeated. And this year doesn't change it because Notre Dame didn't get in because they didn't go undefeated. They got in because they didn't go undefeated, plus the fact their schedule was garbage. If Notre Dame had a better schedule, and again, it's not their fault. Who can anticipate that Stanford's going to suck, USC's going to suck, North Carolina's going to suck, Wisconsin's going to suck, Purdue's going to suck? You know what I mean? Like, you can't really say that. They beat 0 top 25 teams.
And look, everybody's looking at next year and be like, oh, we got Clemson, we got Ohio State, we got Lincoln Riley led USC. Okay, that looks great now, but a year from now, maybe that doesn't look as good as we thought. Well,
let's just assume it does. Well, let's assume all those teams are as good as we think they're going to be. If they lose by a touchdown against Ohio State in the opener and then run the table, does anyone in the world think Notre Dame's not getting in the playoff?
Right.
Outside of there being 4 undefeated
teams. Correct.
Of course they do. So, and here's the other thing too, is if Notre Dame had a better schedule, they'd have been ranked higher than 6th going into the last weekend.
Exactly.
If Notre Dame had 3 top 25 wins on their schedule, right? Let's say they'd have beat Cincinnati. Let's say Wisconsin beats Minnesota. Let's say Purdue, beats Minnesota as well. They're both 9-3. They're both ranked. They beat Cincinnati and they'd have lost to, Florida State in the opener. Notre Dame's probably higher than 6th. Right now, because they would have had a much better resume. They didn't get in, Jordan, not because they lost. And there's this mantra that a year after they got in with a loss, a 24-point loss in their last game, that now they have to go undefeated to get in. No, you can't go undefeated, or you can't go 11-1 and beat no ranked teams. That's called a group of 6, a group of 5 team. That's what they do. That's why UCF never got in, being undefeated. You have to beat somebody. Notre Dame didn't beat anybody.
And honestly, Notre Dame's pretty highly ranked for that resume.
If anything, they got benefit of the doubt. I mean, there's a lot of people that will say, well, if they would have played so-and-so's schedule, would they be 11-1? I still think they would be. But that's a legitimate argument to make. Mm-hmm. They were ranked 5th despite beating 0 ranked teams. Notre Dame ended the season ranked 5th with a loss and beat 0 ranked teams.
Yeah.
That means the committee, as we've always said, gives Notre Dame a lot of credit and a lot of benefit of the doubt. Always have. Always have.
Christopher Morgan with the super chat. Thank you, Christopher. So last night when I was talking to my girlfriend, IU grad, and me being a Grand Valley State grad, when you guys didn't know where Grand Valley State was, Allendale, Michigan, and also she will get some IB merch for Christmas. No BS. She'll be getting some Irish merch for Christmas. LOL. Converting her.
Let's do it.
Well played, sir.
We got your back, Christopher.
And thanks for the heads up on Allendale. I couldn't remember the city that they were in, but again,
I blame Vince. I never pretended to know where it is. Vince did.
Well, I didn't know if anybody would know where Allendale, Michigan was if I said it. So that's why I said west of Grand Rapids. Anyway, that's awesome, Christopher. Ray Price with the super chat. Thank you very much. Let the new era begin. Go Notre Dame. Thank you, IB, for keeping us informed this week.
You are welcome.
Thanks for tuning in, Ray. We really appreciate it, man. This is the overall excitement around Irish Breakdown and Notre Dame and everything has just been overwhelming and amazing and awesome and fantastic all at the same time. So
I got one here, Vince. Let me pull up one. I want to mix in some of these here between the two. So Ty B asks, what type of approach on offense and defense do you think they need to take for Notre Dame to dominate this game? I think defensively, it's just do what you do, shut down the run, mix up the quarterback's kind of eye discipline, right? Force them into some mistakes. Mistakes don't always mean turnovers. They also mean incompletions and things like that. Just do what you do. Do what you've been doing, right? Offensively, it's going to be a little bit different because I think you need to you're going to have to be able to find some success in the pass game. This is an Oklahoma State team that, in my opinion, is really, really good against the run. And Notre Dame is just not a real good running team. And I don't expect that all of a sudden to change because Brian Kelly's not there. As long as Jeff Quinn's the offensive line coach, Notre Dame's not going to miraculously become a great running team. Okay. Now, what I'll say is that doesn't mean you just abandon the run completely. It means you have to do what you've been doing of building around the pass. There's things they're going to have to do on the perimeter. Get Oklahoma State running east-west, because if you can get them running east-west, it's going to create some opportunities to get up the field. I think there are some things you can do that Baylor was able to do yesterday, despite not having the skill that Notre Dame has, nor the quarterback that Notre Dame has. Baylor was able to get some isolations that were there. Their tight end had a lot of success yesterday. So I think finding some matchups that are favorable for Michael Mayer, Kyron Williams, and Kevin Austin is key. And then finding ways to scheme your speed in space. Get Lorenzo Styles, get Braden Lindsey in space with speed. I think those things you do. But the more you can get them going like this, the more chance you have to bust some vertically. But it's going to require the offensive line to protect the quarterback, which is not going to be easy against in my opinion, this is going to be the best pass rushing team Notre Dame has faced all year. I mean, they get after it. They get after it with front four pressure. They get after it with blitzes. The O-line's going to have to play great. Jack Cohn's going to have to make great decisions. And it's going to require a game plan that's designed to make them pay when they bring pressure. Yeah. I think those are going to be key parts of it, Vince.
We just got an email from Notre Dame that I wanted to address just real quick. They're going to have a teleconference with, both teams here in a couple of hours about the Fiesta Bowl. And the interesting thing to me, Brian, is Tommy Rees is going to be the representative for Notre Dame on that call.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting. That doesn't happen in the past. Like, the coordinator isn't going to be the rep.
Well, I wonder if part of that is because they have not officially named Marcus. I mean, they haven't had the introductory press conference or something like that.
They officially named him, though. I mean,
I don't know.
Done.
Yeah.
But I think that's interesting. I feel like Marcus is letting his guy get out there a little bit.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's the way I read it. I just want to throw it out there. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely wouldn't have seen that before.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm reading through that now.
Something to ponder. Savage Fitness, what's up? Thank you very much. I feel bad for Oklahoma State and the Kobe Bryant-esque attitude from Coach Freeman, loving the Mamba mentality. It's a really good point, actually.
I wasn't sure when I saw Kobe Bryant attitude. I was like, okay, where's this going to go? But yeah, no, he's got, and he does it in a real, like I said, disarming personality.
Yeah, no question.
He can talk bad about you, and you feel like you just complimented.
But like, wow, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Coach. You are going to crush me. Yep.
TJ Fallon, thanks for the super chat. I work in Stillwater and watch Oklahoma State. Gundy is a good coach. This is a big game for Notre Dame. We need to keep the future bright. It is a big game for Notre Dame. There's no question about it. It's a top 10 team. Okay? It's a top 10 team. And Notre Dame has an opportunity here to do some stuff, and I like it. Alex with the super chat. Freeman's answer to the recruiting question from Palmer made me want to commit today. His comment about perception on Notre Dame recruiting was spot on. Yeah. Completely agree with that.
And then kind of rejected it right? Like that's the thing is like he's like we've got to change that. Not like, well, it is what it is, and we just have to learn to do this, that, and the other thing. He said like it was like we're going to change this. This is going to change, and yeah, it's exciting.
Jordan with another super chat. Thanks, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Notre Dame 45, Oklahoma State 0. Tommy showing the 23 and 24 recruits what a new offensive era has begun, and Notre Dame finishes number 2 behind the national champion and should have been in. I mean, there's a chance that could happen, but there's going to have to be some blowouts in the Final Four for Notre Dame to jump all the way to 2.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible.
But there's got to be some serious blowouts.
Yeah, I think they could potentially get up to 3, but I don't think.
Yeah, 3 I think would be great. I think 3 would be great. Wendell with the super chat. How do you feel our offensive identity changing, if at all, with Reese minus Kelly? You kind of touched on that a little bit. But thank you, Wendell. Appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, it's not going to be a dramatic change.
Right.
I just hope it's a modernization. We're still going to see them run the ball. We're going to still see probably inside, outside zone. I would hope a little bit of variation to the run game than what we've seen. I think under Tommy Rees, we're going to continue to see more variety between horizontal, vertical stretches and also triangle concepts. I think we're going to see all 3 of those things mixed in. We've obviously seen Tommy Rees do more with the screen game this season than we've seen from Notre Dame in past years. I think that's something that he really likes. And I think that's his West Coast influence, because he's got a little bit of a West Coast influence. Like, I know he studies Kyle Shanahan, who's like a West Coast guy, so he kind of implemented a little bit of that. The screen game is a big part of the West Coast offense. And so I think that was something we saw a lot.
Yeah.
And not only did they run it a lot, this was the most success we've seen Notre Dame with running back screens in a long time.
Absolutely. Because they were more geared toward wide receiver screens, it felt like, for a while.
And some of the running back screens, I mean, the timing was always bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is something that Jeff Quinn did do a good job of this year, is that this was a much better coached screen team, offensive line wise, than we've seen in the past.
Absolutely. Mark with the super chat. Thank you very much. Thanks, Brian and Vince. Do you think Kyle Hamilton will or should play in the bowl game? I don't think he will. And I don't blame him for not. Look, as a fan, I would love to see Kyle Hamilton in this game. I would love it. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening. Brian,
I don't think he will. I think he should, but not in a way where I'm going to crush him for not. I mean, it's the thing is, he had an injury that he decided not to come back from. That's different to me than a guy playing 12 games and then just not playing the last
just popping out. Yeah.
Right. So I don't love it, but I'm not surprised by it. And
I mean, neither.
And honestly, if Kyle chooses not to play, that's not a bad thing for Notre Dame, because again,
they've been playing better safety play since he's been out.
Again, not because of him. That's that not because he's not playing, but more so for me, it's just another 15 practices and another game, because you get 15 practices leading up to the bowl game.
Right.
It's 15 more practices in a game that you're preparing for what your roster is going to be like next year in a way that is the right way. It's not benching Jack Cohn to do that. It's, hey, he chose not to play, so this is an opportunity for us to build on next year while focusing on winning this game.
Right.
And so to me, that's how I look at it.
Tim McCarthy, thanks for the super chat. Who do you guys think will coach the offensive line in the bowl game?
My understanding is it's still going to be Jeff Quinn.
Yeah.
There is a slight possibility he may not, if by his choice, and then it would just be the O-line GA would be the guy that would step up and do it most likely. You're not going to bring a coach from the outside in. I don't see that happening. But look, they're not going to start practice for another.
Yeah, they're going to give the guys some time off,
couple weeks,
finals, and that kind of stuff.
So there's a chance.
Yeah.
Could if Jeff Quinn decided to retire now, if let's say he knew that they were going to bring Chris Watt back and he decided to retire because he just, you got a guy that knows the offense, and then that'd be different because he's coached all the players.
Exactly. That would be the only exception. Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
Christopher Morgan jumping back in with the super chat. Man, Christopher, thank you very much. Off topic. When I started watching you guys, I was like 1.5 to 3 hours past you guys, and in the next 3 days, with me ordering my first YouTube merch purchases of all, I'm gonna drag her to
home games at Notre Dame.
Thank you very much. So bad with that kind of stuff.
It's all good.
Thank you, Christopher. Really appreciate it, man. You're all in, brother, and I love it. I love it.
It means those home games we come to next year, you're gonna have to wear the IB merch and come to the tailgates.
That's right. No question.
Yeah.
Here we go. Gregory Gilbert, thank you very much. Loving the Southern accent.
Oh, bless your heart. That's so sweet. Thank you. Hey, I did want to get one here, Vince. Thank you, Gregory, very, very much. Did you answer this question? Because I had said earlier that options. Did you agree with me on this? Did you think Oklahoma State was the one you want? You said Michigan State.
I said Michigan State was the one my heart wanted, but from a football standpoint, I thought the game is going to be better against Oklahoma State. I think Notre Dame just beats the doors off of Michigan State.
And that would give you family bragging rights. Is that what you 100%. Is that okay? Okay. Because what'd you say? Your father-in-law is a Michigan State fan? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
So, all right. Here we go. Will, my cousin went to Notre Dame Academy in Middleburg because you had mentioned Notre Dame and when we were talking about baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. Is that the one? Is that in Virginia? I don't remember where they were from. Hey, I want to show this real quick. TJ Stalica says, don't like the 11 a.m. kickoff. That's 11 a.m. Central. It's a 1 o'clock.
It's 11 a.m. Mountain.
Mountain, yes. I'm sorry, which makes it a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff.
So it's 11 a.m. local time because that's where.
But it's going to be a 1 o'clock. Yeah,
correct.
Right.
Yeah, and that's TV, man. It's Eastern time. They got the blocks. Right. They got the 1 o'clock.
Notre Dame is still going to be on Eastern time in their heads. I mean,
you got the 4 o'clock Rose Bowl, I do believe. So I mean, it's 1, 4, 8. Like that's how it always is. So yeah. Kevin O'Neill with the super chat. Thank you very much, Kevin. I like the Oklahoma State matchup in that both teams were in college hoops lingo, the last 2 out. Thanks for all you do, gents. That's a really good point, actually. They were 5 and 6. Or well, yeah, they are 5.
Going in, they were 5 and 6. They're 5 and 9 now.
5 and 6. They're 5 and 9. Yeah, but I like that. Yeah, why not? Why not?
I want to say this too. Thomas Walsh, because my guy, we haven't seen Thomas in a while, so I wanted to get his comment in. Good to see you, Thomas. Love hearing from you, buddy. Coach Freeman is the guy. He gets Indy and will continue to kill it in recruiting. I think that last part, I got some stuff I'm going to write about this week about that part. That's the thing. My biggest takeaway is this is a guy that embraces Notre Dame, and to embrace Notre Dame properly, you have to get Notre Dame. And I think that's the reason that I was told from sources that he wanted. I can say with good authority that this was the job Marcus Freeman wanted.
Yeah.
Like there was other jobs out there. There was rumblings about Oregon. There's been rumblings about Oregon's going to need an opening for a little while.
Yep. And it's getting hotter.
He put all his eggs in the Notre Dame basket because I've been told by several times that from the moment he got here, he loves what Notre Dame stands for. And complete 180 from what we've expected is like the academic piece that he looks at as an opportunity to give to players as opposed to a stumbling block to get to your level of success.
Well, remember, he was his dad's comment away from committing to Notre Dame as a player. So, I mean,
that's what he said, right?
Well, I'll take him at his word. I'll take his word for it. I mean, that's fine.
But
either way.
Right. The point is, though, he's embraced what makes Notre Dame different as opposed to using it as a stumbling block or excuse. And that is something that I really like. Really like. No, this is a comment from TJ. I like how he brought up the academic standards for recruiting. He said he tells them it helps the recruits for football and or their life beyond football. Love it. Love it.
I got a super chat right here from Kay Grant. He says, everyone sign up for the IE board. It's worth the money. Go Irish. Thanks, Kay.
It's been really happening. That. We've added over 200 people the last week. And Tommy Gunn says, everyone say hi to my daughter, Kylie. If she's still watching, hi, Kylie. How are you? Hope you're enjoying the show. So, Ty P, Brian, please before the show ends, do the BK voice again.
He started something.
Oh, my gosh.
Josh Miller with the super chat. Thanks very much. No question. Just feel like I've listened to about $6,000 worth of content this week. But can't afford that. Thanks, guys. Not only is Notre Dame's future bright, but so is yours. Good luck and keep it up. Thank you, Josh. That actually means a lot. That's awesome, man.
I wish you listened to $6,000 worth of content this week. No question.
It feels like that. I will say that. It feels like about $6,000 worth of content. But look, seriously, Josh, we appreciate that. the support from everybody in the chat and that we've seen over the last week has been unbelievable. I mean, we're not even at a full week since this all went down, Brian. Like,
yeah, I mean, think about it. A week ago today, we were just like kind of reacting to, we had just got done kind of wrapping up the, wow, can you believe Lincoln Riley's going to USC?
Yeah, because we did a show on it right about now.
Yeah. I mean, and since then, Brian Kelly left to LSU. Marcus Freeman's been hired at Notre Dame. Billy Napier's going to Florida. Mario Cristobal just left Oregon, go to Miami. Oklahoma just hired Brent Venables. Like, it has been an insane week when it comes to the coaching.
So the only major opening still there is Oregon? Does that sound right?
Yeah, because Oklahoma, Venable. I mean, Virginia Tech's done. I mean, like Texas.
Major opening.
Yeah, like Washington. Yeah, they got Kalen DeBoer from Fresno State. So their job is. I consider that kind of a major opening.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think Oregon's the only one left now that Oklahoma's decided to move to Venable. So it's now, of course, if they hire a current Power 5 head coach, like if let's say they were convinced Brian Harsin to go back to the Northwest, then all of a sudden Auburn comes open. So
sure.
It's
still dominoes that
there's a lot to get interesting. But yeah, if now I have not seen that the Diaz the Cristobal stuff to Oregon Miami as being 100% like it's a done deal. It sounds like it's going to happen.
Diaz?
Not yet. What I read was from some tweets or from some media analysts, they don't want the Miami coaches are out on the road recruiting.
Okay,
but they didn't want to fire them until they've got Cristobal signed. That is so wrong.
That's messed up, man.
Like
what do you think these coaches are saying? Like, I mean, I'm sure they're all professionals and they're doing their jobs, but like, man, how do you even spin that to a recruit that you're trying to get to come? I mean, that's messed up, man. Messed up.
Yep.
All right. Andrew Burke has a super chat. Thank you very much. Do you think Freeman will call the defense in the Fiesta Bowl? I would say yes. But I can guarantee you, if somebody doesn't ask it before the mic gets to me, I will be asking.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Yes. So, yeah.
Bowl game and next season.
Yes. Yep.
We got Semper. I love this. I'm sorry, Vince. Semperfied Crawfish Company. LSU fan here. Welcome. Just want to let you guys know, most of us down here wish you guys the best of luck, and we are pulling for you guys. Appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Very, very much. Very
awesome.
Much.
That's awesome. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you served as well. So thank you.
And then I love this too. Go Irish. So yeah, but yes. And if you did, I see that Semperfied. Thank you very, very much for your service.
Absolutely. Stoic Behavior with the super chat. Thank you very much. I never got the championship or bust crowd. I believe Notre Dame should vie for a championship every 3 years and winning New Year's Six bowls when not vying for one. Is that realistic or a low expectation?
I think Notre Dame should always be in championship contention. That's what I think. Now, sometimes championship contention is exactly what we saw this season, right? 11-1, you didn't quite get it done. Go to a major bowl and win it. Like that's a successful season that continues to move the program forward.
Yeah.
Right? No team wins it every year. Notre Dame has never won it every year. Frank Leahy didn't go 7 years in a row where he won a national championship, right? Newt Rockne didn't do that. It's about a level of excellence where every year you should be entering the month of November with either you're in it or you've got a chance to be in it, right? And that's kind of the standard. Because not every year, even with a good coach, every year you're going to have some years where you just still can't believe Lou Holtz lost that game to Stanford kind of thing,
Right.
And it's going to happen. It's just you need to make sure that it's not happening often and you're still getting the big wins. But every year, Notre Dame should be a New Year's Six to championship caliber football team. And so I would say not every 3 years. I think Notre Dame can kind of be a little bit, better than that. They're not there yet. But the reality is Notre Dame has vied for a championship in 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And this year they were 11-1, and they just needed one more game to go differently yesterday, and they're in the playoff again. 3 out of 4 years, 3 out of 4 years. So that's kind of how I view it is they should be entering November every year with either they're in it or with a shot should some things happen to be in it. That's kind of, and then every 5 or 6 years, you're going to have that 1 year where, look, we lost 14 kids in the NFL because we just had a great year and, we got a real tough schedule. And so it's that 10-2, 9-3 fall back year but you're excited because you're geared up with all the young kids to come back next year.
Right.
But that's kind of how I see it.
Joseph with the super chat. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for this channel and all of your work. I literally found you guys a week before the chaos. I think emotionally, Notre Dame had the advantage. I assume he's referring to the bowl game, and I would agree with you 100%. I think they're going to be a team on a mission. No question about that. And thanks for joining the family, man. Thanks for joining the IB family.
We've probably had our channel had added about 1,500 subscribers in the last week,
which is fantastic.
So that's awesome. It just it's way beyond what we thought we were going to hear.
I could have imagined. Garth Cassidy with the super chat. Could Marcus be on the road right now? It's funny that you mentioned that because I was going to bring that up. I don't know that he'd be on the road because he has to be back tomorrow by 2:00.
Right.
But with private jets and everything, anything's possible.
He may be going somewhere and then coming back.
That thought crossed my mind because if Tommy Rees is doing the press conference today in about an hour, then I think that means Marcus is disposed.
There may be some other team things he has going on too. He may be saying, because like he said today was my first chance to really meet with the guys on an individual basis.
Right. And he may be going through one-on-ones with
what I'd be curious about is if whose decision was this?
Yeah.
Was this a Jack Swarbrick decision to have Tommy talk or a Marcus Freeman decision? If it was a Marcus Freeman decision, I'm going to be kind of excited about it.
That's what I'm saying.
Because now, if it was Jack Swarbrick decision or a timing decision or whatever, then it is what it is. He's got something. But if this was a situation where Marcus is embracing lifting up the entire staff,
I'm telling you, man.
I'm gonna. Oh, and you know who's going to be the MC of tomorrow's announcement?
I do. Yeah, it's awesome.
Go ahead and tell everybody. The person who's going to be Brady Quinn, the MC of the Marcus Freeman
is going to MC the whole thing. And they if anybody watched the ESPN, you could see the setup in the background when they were interviewing Marcus Freeman. There's a stage set up in the indoor practice facility. Bunch of it looks like graduation in there. Mm-hmm. There's so many chairs set up. It's going to be very, very interesting, and it just tells me I better get there early. It's not going to be like my normal where I get there right on time.
Right. So. And the other thing, too, is you got to remember they're somewhat contemporaries, Marcus Freeman and Brady Quinn. They're both from the Dayton area. Brady was only 2 years ahead of Marcus.
That's a really good point.
Right? No, 1 year ahead of Marcus. 2 years. Brady was a 6'5", 4'3". Okay, 1 year. Brady was a freshman in 2003. Marcus was a freshman in 2004.
Okay.
So they were from the same area at the same time. Obviously, Marcus was on the 2005 Ohio. He was a sophomore on the Ohio State team in 2005 that Brady was a junior on for Notre Dame when they played in Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
So I guarantee they know each other.
Yeah.
In some capacity, they know each other. And so it's just nice to see Brady coming back. It's just nice to see former players kind of being excited about this thing.
So, I think that you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more former players being more involved in the program. Oscar McBride, we had him on when the news broke, right? And he wasn't shy about saying that it just didn't feel super welcome to former players. And I don't see Marcus Freeman. And you had mentioned that maybe some of that had to do with the university or whatever.
And also he's a legitimate player. He didn't play at D2 or D3 school like Brian Kelly and myself, right? It's not a shot on Brian Kelly. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But he's a younger guy that played against some of these guys. And
exactly.
I said they're both from Dayton. What I meant to say is Marcus from Dayton, Brady's from Dublin. That's like they're not far apart at all.
Right.
Like
you know each other.
It's the same region. It's the same, elite. Who you're playing against. So
absolutely.
That's kind of what I was referring to. But they're from the same area. They're a year apart. They were both on really good high school programs in Western Ohio, kind of Central Ohio area. This is just cool to see.
Yeah.
I was excited.
I think it's ushering in a new era of older guys being involved, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Benjamin, thank you very much for the super chat. Watching the Oklahoma State game, noticed the quarterback was not in control of his emotions. Does our defense get him down early?
Well, they're going to need to, because that's been the knock on. I mean, they talked about this in the show yesterday, but that's been the knock on him his whole career. He gets real emotional, and and his play follows. When he gets emotional, he gets fired up. His play diminishes. When he stays calm and poised, he plays really well. And you got to make sure that you don't allow the really good version of Spencer Sanders to show up, because he can make plays with his big arm. He can make plays with his legs. You can't let him get comfortable. when he gets comfortable, he's dangerous because he's got some decent weapons. He's got some really good running backs, good offensive line, and a great defense. So that is obviously concerning. You got to make sure that you got to make sure, Benjamin, that you force this part of him to be the quarterback you see. Hit him, get to him early, rattle him.
Yeah.
Because you'll see he'll throw balls up. I mean, you saw it in this game, you saw it against Oklahoma, you saw it in the first Baylor game. He'll throw some balls up when he starts getting pressured because he has a lot of confidence in his arm. And sometimes guys like that, when they're getting pressured, will force balls that they shouldn't be forcing.
Absolutely correct.
And that's what Notre Dame needs to do.
No question about that. Garth with another super chat. And he kind of repeated his last super chat, but I'll say thank you anyway for throwing that up. He says, could Marcus be on the road right now? Won't be back in time. And that is why Reese is doing the interview. It's definitely possible. I'm sure Brian will reach out and find out because that's what Brian does.
I'll try.
Craig Sebring, thank you for the super chat. From what I saw yesterday, Notre Dame needs to do what Baylor did and use their tees and a lot of quick passes. Go Irish. Use their tees.
Tight ends.
Thank you.
Because they threw to their tight ends a lot yesterday.
Yes, and that's a strength for Notre Dame. So I would think that would be the case as well. Michael S., what do you mean by inside-outside zone? Give me an example.
Okay, yes. So inside zone. So essentially zone blocking is you're not really running to a hole. So like we've talked, we had a football 101. Did we do the gaps 101? The gap we did that.
We talked.
So we have a football 101. We talk about line gaps and net numbering. I would encourage you to check that out. But basically there are gaps, right? And the gap between the center and the guard. So the gap is the space between the center and the guard. That's what we call the A gap. The B gap is the space between the guard and the tackle. That's the B gap, right, Vince? The C gap is the guard between the tackle and the tight end, and then D gap is from the tight end to whatever else.
The sideline, essentially.
Right. And so, what you'll a lot of times do is, so like on old school power row offense, right? It is most teams taught it where your aiming point is the inside hip of the guard because it is an A gap to backside, a front side A gap to backside A gap run. Now, occasionally you'll bounce it, but it's designed to be an A gap run. That is a sort of a man or a gap scheme. Other times you will run where you'll down block with a tackle and then kick out a guard because you're trying to create an open gap right there in that B gap between those players. Zone is more of exactly that. You're running to a zone. So, for example, in an inside zone, and it's taught different ways, but the traditional way is you attack the inside hip of that guard. Okay, now you're going to have an insert point that can either be front side, right up the middle, or cut back, but there's no specific hole designed. You're running to a zone and you're reading, and the read that we taught our backs, and most backs get caught, is you run to daylight. So you see color, you cut away. Color just basically means if you see that defender flashing on a side, you cut the other way. So if you're reading that the inside hip of that guard and you see color inside, you're cutting back or you're bouncing depending on how you caught. Some people will teach A gap to bounce on an inside zone. That's kind of getting closer to the mid zone. Usually it's A gap to cut back. The way that Chip Long designed it, he wanted his inside zone to always cut back. If it was blocked correctly, it was cutting back. That's why if you go back and watch Notre Dame's film of that 2017 line, their inside zone a lot of times started to the right, away from Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey, because they wanted to cut back to them, right? And so that's kind of part, but it's an inside zone or a downhill inside zone run that, you'll have combo blocks working to the second level, which opens up, you find the hole and hit it. Outside zone is more of a perimeter play. Now it can be run two ways. One, it can be run on a handoff, like a wide out of the shotgun where you kind of stretch it, then find an insert point. That's more of a really fast swipe kind of play. You're really stretching it outside. Or you can run it from like the handoff or a pistol where you're attacking more of a downhill angle on the inside hip of the tight end. Or some teams will teach it outside hip of the tackle because they don't often use tight ends, right? Some teams like to run the stretch play away from the tight end just to secure a cutback so then they can either bounce because they're stretching it so much. I kind of liked running it to the tight end because it just created an extra potential, surface on that side. But you'll stretch it, and then you have that same read. You're reading the inside hip or outside hip of the tackle or inside hip of the tight end, and you just stretch it. And then wherever that guy goes, you make your cut appropriately. There were times, if you go back and watch, I think it was the Josh Adams touchdown run against North Carolina in 2017. They ran a buck sweep, which is sort of it's more of a gap scheme, right? So you down block and you pin and pull. right? And you get out, and then Josh will kind of cut vertically. Then you saw plays like the long touchdown run against USC, the 84-yard touchdown run. That was a zone, right? Run downhill. Alex Bars makes a block a certain way. He cuts behind it, and you go. So hopefully that sort of explains the difference in inside and outside zone. We're going to try to do some video stuff on that this offseason.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to promise something and then we continue to have the difficulties we've had
after a 10-minute conversation
technologically. But no, I mean, I don't want to promise that we're going to do the video part.
Oh, gotcha. I was just joking with you, buddy.
Just got to try to get the technology right.
Yes, absolutely. Who dat with the $5 super chat. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. And I think we have a couple more. Toe Jam jumping in. Why, I do declare, if you see Zorich's interview, Tom Mendoza and Ryan Harris, Mendoza's insight into Freeman was very inspiring.
I did not.
I did not see that either. I did not. I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to check anybody else out because I've been hanging with y'all an awful lot lately. So, which is the way I want it. I think we have one more. Here we go. Ragin' Cajun. Thank you very much for the super chat. Change of subject. Sorry, I've looked everywhere. Who on this staff is Catholic? After hearing Lou Holtz talk about how Kelly never talked about Our Lady, it just got me wondering.
So I don't think that's what Lou Holtz meant by that. I think what he talks about Our Lady is just about a passion for Notre Dame. And what Notre Dame truly stands for. Right. I think that's more what he's referring to.
And to refer to the things that Notre Dame stands for. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think because Brian Kelly actually is Catholic from what we're told, and not all the coaches are. So I don't.
And I honestly wouldn't even know where to start with that. Because I just don't know. I mean, I know where I go to church, and I know I've seen some of the coaches at my church, but that doesn't mean anything.
And Matt Bayless goes to my church, so it's not. I'm not Catholic,
right? And
so you don't have to be Catholic. Somebody actually, a USC person asked me this the other day. You do not have to be Catholic to attend Notre Dame. Mm-mm. You do not have to be Catholic to work at Notre Dame or coach at Notre Dame. There's no Catholic requirement. Ryan Harris was a Muslim while in school. I don't know if Rocket Ismail was a Muslim then. But he is now. I believe he was a Muslim at Notre Dame even when he's at Notre Dame. We've had plenty of kids of other faiths. Some kids, I'm sure there's kids on the team that don't have a faith of any kind. There's no requirement like you might see it like
possibly doing a Mormon mission.
Yes, he was a Mormon.
Yeah. So I mean,
he was Mormon.
Just another example.
Yeah, and we've seen them sign guys that took Mormon missions, right? I mean, Kahanu Key is a guy that he's a Mormon. There's talk about him taking a Mormon mission. Chris Badger came to Notre Dame, took a Mormon mission. So yes, you were correct. Kona Schwenke, I believe, was Mormon as well.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong on that, but yeah. And if you want to get fired up, I'll randomly do this about once a month because it's still sad that he passed. But I still like watching when him, Manti, and Justin Utupo did that haka dance before the Miami game. That still gets me fired up. Miami was like done at that point in time. Like, we're about to get our behinds kicked by these freaking guys.
John Dalton, can Freeman and company maintain double-digit wins?
Well, that's the task.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's the task laid out in front of them. And look, is it all about wins? It's not all about wins. But
you're hired at Notre Dame to win football games.
Yeah, you at least have to maintain.
Yeah.
And I mean,
you're hired. I don't think anyone's excited about Marcus Freeman being hired so he can just keep doing what Brian Kelly did. There's a hope that he's going to take it to the next level. And if he starts going 8-4 and 7-5, then he's still going to be no different than Charlie Weiss and Ty Willingham and all those guys. I have a here, Matt, from Matt Anderson. Guys, I love Marcus, but we might have to cool our jets on him for a second. Remember, Notre Dame has had a notoriously bad past with hiring head coaches with no experience. I'll repeat again. I wrote an article about this yesterday. There are things Marcus Freeman needs to learn from those coaches, but Charlie Weiss and Bob Davie did not fail at Notre Dame because they had no experience, because the coach right before them had experience and he failed just as bad as they did. They failed for one reason and one reason only. They weren't competent and qualified to be successful at a place like Notre Dame. Simple as that.
Yep. People make too much out of it. I'm sorry if they do. Either you have it or you don't.
Right.
And just because you haven't been a head coach, and you know what? There's a lot of responsibilities as the Notre Dame head coach. There are.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
And there will be growing pains for Marcus Freeman in the head coaching duties.
But we talked about this. Having Mike Elston on staff, huge. Having John McNulty on the staff for Tommy Rees, huge. Like those are going to be big time retentions for Marcus Freeman. And, we'll see. Again, we're going to bust him for some stuff. There's no question. But again, I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. My guy, Victor, I had to pull this up. Guy I used to coach with. It's a really good guy. He says, Vince, my guy, quick question. Am I crazy for thinking Notre Dame has better athletes than any non-playoff team except Ohio State? So it'll be a matter of game plan and execution. Thanks, brother. Keep working. I think Notre Dame's skill position players are very underrated by a lot of people. And you listen to any national talking head, they still talk about, Notre Dame doesn't have the skill position players, blah, 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 blah. It's nonsense. I completely agree with you, Vic. I don't. Notre Dame has excellent players out the scheme holding them back in the past. But I think that's developing and I think that's changing.
I think Notre Dame's skill talent is a lot better than people think. I still don't think they're where Bama is athletically, top to bottom. Now, do they have some players that can match up against anybody that Bama has athletically? Yes. That's always been true. It's, Bama's 15 deep and you're 8 deep. It used to be where Notre Dame was 4 deep. And then, they're continuing to grow. Sure. Like maybe now it's 10 deep where Bama's 15 deep, right?
Right.
They're certainly closing the bar, but I still believe Alabama has more athletes. I think the team that is overrated from an athlete standpoint compared to Notre Dame is Georgia. I don't think they're quite what people think they are. Georgia's good because they have big physical guys. That's where they're good. I don't think their athletes are exceptional. They've had some exceptional players. Yeah. Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel, Roquan Smith, guys like that. Their corners last year were super athletic. But I think Notre Dame and Ohio State and Alabama, to me, are better than Georgia athletically at the skill position. So I think Notre Dame is certainly gaining ground. I don't think they're there yet. I think Notre Dame has better athletes than Michigan. I think Notre Dame has better athletes than Cincinnati. I think they have better athletes than Georgia. They just weren't as good of a team this year as those teams were for the entire season. Yeah. That's the difference. Notre Dame was one of the 4 best teams in the country the second half of the year. Unfortunately for them, the playoff is determined by what Cincinnati you do the entire season.
In the first half of the season. Right. If they face Cincinnati in October or November, I don't think we're having the same.
I believe so. Right. I mean, we don't know. Cincinnati people will say we're nuts for that,
and that's fine. Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. Right. And that's the bottom line. They earned it. And we can speculate all we want. And we could be called homers and all that, and that's fine. Okay,
bothers me for 0 seconds.
I was gonna say I still sleep really well at night, so it's all good to me. Garth Cassidy with the super chat. Do you think we could see Fisher in the bowl game?
That would surprise me, but I have not been told no. I have not been told no. I've been not told yes. That would surprise me though.
Yeah. Matt, thank you for the super chat. Brian Kelly still has an opportunity to save himself from getting mollywopped and ditch LSU for Oregon. Bless his heart.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
That would be so awesome.
It'll never happen because Oregon would never pay that much for head coach.
Right.
But that's why that's part of the reason Mark Cristobal's leaving. But that would be the most Brian Kelly thing of all time.
That would be so great. David Hess, thanks for the super chat. Let's go win that New Year's 6, or let's go get that New Year's 6 win. Completely agree. It's going to be huge if they can make it happen. And Vic, throwing in the super chat because we answered his question. Thanks, Vic. I really appreciate that, man.
Which question was that?
The one I just pulled up about the skill players.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was really cool, Vic. I appreciate that, man. Brian Hockney, thank you for the super chat. I was wondering your thoughts on a comment that Joe Theismann made on Chris Zorich that Notre Dame needs a quarterback coach that is not the offensive coordinator.
I don't think that's necessary. I don't. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but I don't think it's necessary. As I've explained before, the reason I like it is number one, you need a coordinator that understands how to properly break down practice to when, okay, it's individual time. What Notre Dame has done is they have a GA that also works with the quarterbacks. He will do kind of like what Mike Denbrock had when he was a receivers coach, where there's times when he can't be there to work with every single thing in individual. When they get to team periods, like so when they're in individual drills, Tommy Rees is coaching his head off. I mean, he's just coaching, instruction. But then you get to 7-on-7 and team, he has to focus more on the entire offense. Exactly. He has someone that he trusts as the GA that works with quarterbacks that can kind of notice, hey, really drive off that back foot. He's then reiterating the things that Tommy Rees is emphasizing in practice. Yep. I think you always need something like that where you have a second in command, GA, analyst, somebody that can kind of help you with that. There may be times when you need to be able to tell us, hey, man, take this film session over today. I got to go meet with the O-line, or I got to go meet with
or I got a recruit coming in that I need to talk to.
Something like that.
Whatever the case may be.
And there needs to be that second. Whenever you have a DC, a coordinator, OC DC that works with a position group, you have to have a GA or an analyst that also works that you trust, because you can't always be with that position group.
Right.
That's when people fail. So I don't think that's needed. If you can do it, great. But the reason I like it is because the OC has to be in charge of everything. The quarterback has to know everything.
Right.
And so if the OC is working with the quarterback from a, hey, you have to know what I know standpoint, I think that makes the quarterback better.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like it. And again, Joe Theismann's from a different era.
Yes.
Where I think something like that was probably more necessary than it is today.
Gavin, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Super excited that we are going to play in a game that really matters to kick off the Freeman era. Pitt would have sucked from a narrative standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wasn't excited about Pitt. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't excited about that option. They got a good quarterback, potential finalist for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, there would have been that, but it wouldn't have been a sexy matchup to me at all. All right. And our final super chat on the board at the present, Wendell, thank you very, very much. Concerning the Notre Dame talent versus Bama and Ohio State, I think depth is equivalent. The difference is they have 5 stars at the skill positions that Notre Dame still mostly lacks.
That's, Ohio State's best receiver this year is a 3-star. Chris Olave was a 3-star recruit. I mean, Devin Smith, their best receiver when they won the championship in 2014, was a 3-star recruit. I mean, Devontae Smith was a 5-star by like 1 service, but he was like not a 5-star on the composite list, right? I mean, it's just Alabama's best player, Jamison Williams, is ranked number 87 according to Rivals, right? I'm curious what he was overall, because I'm going to make a point on this. Okay, Jamison Williams, who's the best receiver this year for Alabama, in my opinion, he was the number 82 player in the country in 2009 class on the composite list. Kevin Austin, coming out of high school, was the number 82 player on the 247 composite list the year before. All right, Kyron Williams, not a 5-star player. Would any of you trade Kyron Williams for Alabama's running backs? Any of Alabama's running backs? I sure as heck wouldn't. And so to me, it's about getting elite players.
Right.
And elite players sometimes are 5 stars. Sometimes they're Will Fuller, who was barely a top 200 recruit. Chase Claypool was not a top 100 recruit. He was close, but he was not an elite 5-star guy. It's about finding elite players. Garrett Wilson was an elite recruit. Chris Olave was not. They're both really, really good football players. And to me, that to me is what you need to look for. You do that, and you'll have great receiving cores. It just, again, we focus too much on, because here's where the argument goes wrong. People will say, well, they signed so-and-so 5-stars. And I've pointed out the 2014 Ohio State team as an example. Ohio State had a 5-star middle linebacker, Curtis Grant. They had a 4-star top 200 kind of guy in Josh Perry, and a 3-star guy at Rover and Darren Lee. Okay. Their 5-star middle linebacker was their worst linebacker. He went undrafted. The 3-star was a 1st-round pick. The top 200 kid was a 3rd-round pick. So look and say, oh, wow, look, 5 stars. But he wasn't a 5-star player. The 3-star kid was their 5-star. And, as in college. So, yeah, it's nice to get 5-star players, but we've seen highly ranked kids come to Notre Dame and not do a thing. We've seen kids come to Notre Dame and not be highly ranked guys. I mean, who's Notre Dame's best player on offense, Vince? Who, in your opinion, who's their best player on offense?
Either Michael Mayer or Kyron Williams.
One was a 5-star, Michael Mayer. One was a 3-star.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go wrong with either guy, right? So 5-star college players aren't always 5-star high school players. The key is finding guys with elite ceilings. That's the key. Isaiah Foskey, not a 5-star recruit. Wasn't even a top 200 recruit. Does he play like a 5-star? Yes, he does. And that's the key.
Fair enough. I
like this. Irish have unfinished business with Fiesta. Yes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, hey, that's going to do it for today's show, Vince. Are there any other super chats down there? You got a couple more? Okay.
Matt D says, I just talked to someone that I trust, and I was told that Matt Freeman is on the road recruiting this evening.
There are some fences that need mended.
Yeah, buddy.
That he still has to work on.
And I'm glad he's doing it now. Right. Like, the sooner the better.
Which means he's going to do that, fly back home, and then go right back out on the road.
Exactly. And Garth Cassidy with the super chat. Thank you very much. Georgia got 5 stars all over the field, except at the most important position, quarterback. Well, they have one of those. He was just on the bench.
Right.
So, I mean, it is what it is. So, that's it.
I was almost about to lose it. Somebody said OSU is good collectively, but they have no big-time stud players. And I'm thinking, you're nuts. And then I'm like, oh, crap, he's talking about Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
This next month is going to suck for me because I'm from Ohio. So every time I see OSU, I think Ohio State. So people are going to be asking questions like, oh, guys, why do you keep asking me about Ohio State? They don't play Ohio. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This is not going to be a fun month for me. I'm going to have Angela pop up, give me quizzes like, who is this? Oklahoma State. So, yeah. So I apologize for that, everybody. But anyway, great show today, Vince. I enjoyed it. Great content today. This was a lot of fun. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're not going to probably do our normal 12:30. We're going to probably do a show after Coach Freeman's press conference. So, so just, again, that's why you need to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And, of course, for this show, hit the like button. But make sure you hit the notification so you know when we're going to go live. Right. And we'll kind of wrap up Coach Freeman's press conference, what we heard, what we learned. And then Tuesday, we're going to get back at it with our 12:30, our start times. Tuesday, I believe, Vince and I have discussed, I think we're going to go with, kind of who should or should not come back. Cool. And then we'll dive into some postseason topics. We'll talk a little recruiting because obviously signing day is 10 days away. We'll have some stuff on that as we're able to try to gather some intel. So everybody hit the like button before you leave. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already done so. Hit the notification bell if you have not already done so. Leave us a 5-star review. Check out the message board, boards.irishbreakdown.com. Obviously support us there. That sucker's growing like crazy, faster than I thought. It's just been a huge blessing, been a ton of fun. And, of course, check out irishbreakdown.com. So for Vince, that guy over there, right there, that guy, my man, my football analyst at Irish Breakdown, I'm Brian Driscoll. You all have a great rest of your day. Oklahoma State, Notre Dame, Fiesta Bowl, January 1. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.